Testing, testing. Goodness me, how do I work this thing? There we go. It really ought to make these easier for people to use, especially unintelligent life forms such as myself. Sure hope that I can actually send this message to them after I'm done recording it. Alright, looks like everything is working. Yep. Lights going. Well, it's been a long time, friend. You haven't forgotten me already, have you? It's only been a few years. Anyways, this is Ryker Feldstar. I probably look a bit different than the last time we were together on Proxima Centauri 5. It's been far too long since I've seen you, friend. And I'm sorry that we aren't in person at the moment, but I promise you, I'm working my best to change that. But I'll get back to that later. So let's see here. Goodness, there's so much to discuss since we haven't spoken in so long. Where to even begin? You remember Scout, right? The ship we... who am I kidding? Of course you remember. Atlas is my witness. I know that you could never forget how long it took for us to build that ragtag shuttle together. The long nights spent scavenging Proxima ice fields for salvage, bartering and haggling with that stingy old Eternian at the Proxima 5 spaceport, and trading our ration cards for what we needed to build it together. Yeah. We sure did break our backs to build the Scout. But I digress. She's still running strong, albeit with a few more dead since the last time you saw her. The Corvinal you found out there in the big ice is certainly helpful on my contracts. That stuff is hard as a beruga during mating season. An absolute essential for any bounty hunter. It's been rough out here. I've got no concept of day or night since I left Proxima. Since I left you. It's been so long since I've heard your voice, but one thing we didn't take into account when building the Scout was a better communication system. But I'm working on it. I promise. If only you were closer. A few hundred light years closer. When I get the ship fitted with proper comms, you can guarantee that I'll be bothering you a whole lot more. No more of these audio logs, unless you like these better, of course. Now, I've talked about the ship a bit. What else should I talk about? Something I guess you should know about is what I've been up to. I spent a lot of my time thinking about how you're faring on Proxima. I know it's a bit harsh there. The cold weather, the colder Proximans, the constant harassment from the Eternians. I can't wait to get you out of there. I know you said you had things to sort out on Proxima, but it doesn't change the fact that I miss you. I miss when we used to sit on the roof of our housing unit and stare out at the ice storms on Proxima's surface. I miss riding the Centauri rails with you during the dark hours of night, taking in the sights of the spaceport's nightlife. I know we couldn't actually afford to, experience it back then, but not for long. I'm making a bit of a name for myself out here, and we're going to take part in way more than a few rundown bars and restaurants that only serve slightly better meal rations. I look forward to the day that you're finally able to experience that with me. This isn't to say I didn't enjoy our time together on Proxima. Walking through the crowded streets and experiencing what cultural intrigues were available was always a catch. Oh, and walking through the local Bayado. The one we could get into through the O2 vents and experience what it'd be like if Proxima wasn't, a giant ball of ice and wind. I remember the avian creatures that were brought in from Terra. Such strange creatures. We've spent hours fascinating over them. Oh, and the Calvasian shows we used to watch at the entertainment hub. Goodness, it was always so crowded. But whenever we went, I don't know how, but we always managed to finagle ourselves some good seats. And the walks through the shipyards, Atlas above how long we spent walking through those enormous halls of Admiridium. We used to spend hours on end just watching the Proximan fleets repairing and building their vessels, test firing their engines, feeling the heat and listening to the sounds of the crew cajoling each other for whatever reason. The smell of hydronian fuel, the energy we felt whenever we got the chance to see a crew celebrate completing a ship, even if it was for the Eternian Empire more often than not. It was always such a thrill to see everyone smiling after so much time and hard work had been put into creating something so beautiful. And that one time, an Eternian had docked at the port and thought you were a shipyard commander. God, the amount of hassle you and I caused for that Eternian. You sure did give them the runaround, questioning them as if they were some Kirdali criminal, and then just leaving with me once you'd set them off to the waste disposal plant, telling them it was our headquarters. Those were the days. As little as there was to do on Proxima, it was always a pleasure to have you at my side and just be with you, you know? We always stuck side by side no matter what. And after all these years apart, we're still here for each other. Always will be. But I think one of my favorite moments with you, on Proxima at least, still has to be... Yes. That one night after you pulled me out of a fight with some drunk. You took me to the Evergarden Plaza on the far western side of the spaceport, where there were real patches of grass, trees, none of that synthetic plant life in the O2 generators all over Proxima 5. We weren't supposed to be there, but you took me anyways, knowing that I'd always wanted to go. You paid off the gateman to let us in after hours, since really only the rich get to go there and experience what it'd be like to breathe pure, fresh air. And together, we sat on the edge of our own little world in complete silence, gazing out among the stars, that massive, sparkling infinity that called out to us, always. And me, telling you that one day I would take you with me to the far beyond, away from the cold of Proxima in the hand of the Eternians. And I remember you sitting there, speechless, quiet as usual, but just smiling to yourself with that wonder in your eyes. A moment I will never forget. But I don't mind. I never have. Not since the day we met. In a place where everything is so loud and busy, you're always my breath of fresh air after getting off the shuttle from Proxima's water mining operations. Always smiling no matter how tired you were from your work, too. I've always appreciated that about you. So giving, so, well, perfect. Despite what we've both been through, we've always made our way. And, well, being honest, for the first few months after I left Proxima, I didn't even know what to do with myself without your guidance. You've always been the smart one. But I'm sure I'm boring you with retelling the past as I have so many times before. What should I talk about now? Whenever I'm not on contract, I'm often repairing old Scout here. She's been through so much for me. Least I can do is keep what we made together intact. It reminds me of you, that little smile you gave me every time I gave you a compliment, the look of satisfaction every time we got another part of her complete. One step closer to the stars. And one day, I'll see that smile again. And I swear I'm going to give you the biggest hug you can manage when I do. Goodness, I'm just bumping all over the place, aren't I? I've always been terrible at these things. But I just had to send you something. It's been far too long. Oh, yes, that arm you built for me after I lost it on Proxima, getting an engine for the Scout. It kind of broke on me, so I had to get myself an upgrade. Don't you worry though, I've still got Old Faithful tucked away safe and sound in the cargo hold, so maybe I can repair it in the future. But right now, I've got this rather impressive piece of equipment. It's Eternian, unfortunately, but where they lack in morals, they sure do make up for in good technology. And don't you worry, you've probably already surmised that I got it through alternative means. No way I'm funding an Eternian interest at Eternian prices. Never again. This arm is high grade and well made. Ought to serve me for many years to come if I can avoid getting it caught on a piece of flying space junk again. Well, I guess that I ought to tell you what I've been doing these past few years besides getting into trouble. I don't want to bore you too much with the details, but most of my contracts have been clearing space debris after the Eternians do what, well, the Eternians do. They destroy and conquer, but never see to it that they clean up what they've ruined. Pay's good, but I just wish I didn't have to see it. Besides that, finding common crooks and turning them in for their bounties is relatively commonplace. Though I don't get too many of these contracts, I love scouting missions. Taking our suitably named scout out to the furthest reaches of the galaxy, since the Surveying Corps doesn't like to waste their precious Unicreds sending in ships. They might get destroyed because they're too big and clunky to get through asteroid fields in unknown space like I can. Being able to see things that no one else has ever seen before, discovering what lies beyond what we thought to be the edge of the vastness, and pushing our boundaries even further, it makes me feel alive, and it makes me remember you. Whenever I grip the controls and chart a course, I look to the empty seat beside me here in the cockpit, and I imagine you sitting there, gazing out the window into the great, beautiful emptiness, just like that perfect night on Proxima 5, looking out into the depths of the galaxy. One day, I'll return to you, and I'll bring you with me so we can be together again. So we can live free just like we've always planned. If you've sorted out whatever you needed to on Proxima, it's no rush, of course. I'm just sitting here in my quarters smiling like a fool, thinking about you with me. Experiencing the freedom you've given me. You've allowed me to fly, and I'm forever in your debt. Not that you'd make me pay for anything, you silly thing. Like whenever we'd finish work at the same time and I'd wait for you at the interport and I wanted to take you out for a bite, you'd always insist on paying me, saying it was payment for my patience and that I didn't have to pay. Sure, you got me a few times, but that doesn't mean I still managed to slip you a few Unicreds here and there, much to your dismay and a very, very quick bonk on the top of my head. But it was worth it. You were worth it. Always will be. I'm getting sentimental again. My apologies. I guess I could tell you about my latest contract on Arakara. First and foremost, let me tell you, that place is hot. I could barely stand the heat in my armor, and their sun is just terribly close. I'm surprised that anything could live there at all. It's either a torrential downpour if you go south enough, or a complete desert if you go anywhere else. There's really no in-between. You'd hate it there. That and the Arakarans are rather in your face about everything. Not even just when they're being unpleasant, they don't have much concept of what personal space is. Felt like my employer was about to eat me, but they were just saying hi, apparently. Regardless, I'd received a local alert from Arakara on my way through the Alterac system that a municipal diplomat needed a one-man security detail for a more clandestine walk amongst their fellow Arakarians. Something about getting in touch with her people and assessing Arakara's glory firsthand as a commoner. You know how the Arakarians are with their massive, beautifully crafted buildings and resource-rich planets. Quite the attractive prospect for pirates and Eternians alike. I could definitely see why the diplomat wanted some decent protection. Though with how they acted, I wouldn't be surprised at all if it was one of their associates that had insisted they had someone keeping them on a tight leash. They had absolutely no street smarts. walking into every market stall they saw in search of the finest spices that Arakara had to offer, buying trinkets and baubles, such as ornately fashioned bormite bangles and elaborately woven scarves in the most eye-catching colors possible. They certainly were an excitable individual, very hard to keep track of and even harder to get to the destination at the embassy. Even though we planned on leaving bright and early in the morning, the diplomat just had to have her regal bath and had me accompany her to a proper Arakarian sunrise meal. Far too spicy for my tastes. I might as well have been eating live coals. But I digress. We ended up leaving around noon. Then, after a day of having her pull me along through every stall she could, and me scolding her like a child every time I found her chewing on some street food they'd bought, we arrived at the embassy by nightfall. Me, sweating buckets beneath my helmet and armor, and thoroughly exhausted despite my Gentech enhancements from Proxima. Her antics were certainly entertaining for a short while, but keeping clandestine around a loud, vibrant individual surely is a challenge. I bet you would have loved watching me proverbially pulling my hair out as they told me to take off my helmet and try out some grilled meat on a stick they bought in the few seconds I'd happened to look away. It was an experience, to say the least. Once they had been delivered safely to the embassy, I got rather funny looks from the guards once I got there. Couldn't blame them. A flamboyantly dressed diplomat decked out with fine scarves and jewelry, when they were supposed to be heading straight to the embassy from their residence, was quite peculiar. Furthermore, undoubtedly sweaty Proxman, from the coldest place in the galaxy, working in the scorching heat of Arakara, standing beside them. If you were there, I bet you would have laughed at my sorry state. I probably would have joined in between deep gulps of water. Yeah, it's been a ride out here. Very little time for a resting moment when there's so many people in need of someone willing to work for a decent deposit of unicreds. Some have called me a mercenary, some a hired gun, but most just call me a bounty hunter. So the name stuck, and Red Ryker appears to have appeared more than a few times in my message logs. Such a cheesy name, but that red tinge you added to the scout's hull seems to have helped garner me some notoriety. Even if for such a silly reason. It's kind of nice to know that even from so far away, and after so much time, you're still helping me, just the way you always have. And it reminds me of what I'm here to do. I'm gonna make a name for myself, make it big. And when I'm loaded, I'm going to return to Proxima and we can spend our days exploring space, trying new cuisine, experiencing all the cultures the galaxy has to offer. Or if it ever gets too exhausting, we can just dock somewhere and walk the streets of some city, or drift along in orbit to Calaxium 11, listening to music and watching the star in its hues of blue and fiery dark purple permeating through the darkness of space. As long as it's with you, I think I'd be down for anything. Well, almost anything. Being dragged around all day by an Arakarian has already been scratched off my proverbial bucket list. Let's check my mission list. Where to next? Looks like my next contract is going to be pretty far away. The planet Terra. Supposedly there's some piece of salvage that was lost in that area, and there's a Hugak paying a pretty fair price to get it back in their possession, so looks like that's where I'm heading next. I'm running pretty low on fuel, but I think I should be able to make it there and back if I get lucky enough with the warp station. If worst comes to worst, I can just sit tight on Terra for a while my resources and fuel regenerate. Well, would you look at that? Opportunity calls. There's a holdup at the warp station not too far from here. Might be able to sneak on through without having to wait in queue or pay that steep fee. I'll get in touch with you again. Soon. I really can't wait to get my comms up and running so we can hear each other's voices again. I'll I'll send as many of these as I can until the day I get a transponder. I promise. Hang in there, alright? I haven't forgotten about you. How could I? I miss you too much not to always have you in the back of my mind. We've already been through so much together. Looks like this is where I catch my ride. Take care of yourself, alright? Until next time, this is Ryker Audiolog 1, signing off.